gave me some really good feedback. So what I've done with Stephen's help is I've used some of the material we had last week, and I've used some of the material from the class I was planning to teach today, and tried to make the messaging around recipe yield testing and menu engineering little more user-friendly, I guess would be a way to describe it. Less focused on kitchen and more sort of in general terms. So I think I'm going to go through this lesson plan with you today. I think will explain why we do recipes, why we have to do the yield tests, and why it's important. And when you go out into the industry after you've graduated from Selkirk College, and let's say you're in the cooking program, and you go into a kitchen and you say, maybe you ask, can I see your recipe book? Or do you have a recipe for that? You may get a response that may surprise you. Some chefs may say, oh, we don't have recipe books. I know how much it costs. And that's how a lot of chefs operate. They work on a lot of assumptions that they know this is how much it costs, and this is how much I'm going to sell it for. And that's how they figure they're going to make their margin. So that's a bit of a guessing game based on some industry experience. If you have a busy kitchen, doing recipes for a menu that changes maybe twice, 3 times a year is a lot of work. And so, the recipe costings are extremely important. But one way that chefs handle recipe costings is they'll focus on the proteins, the most expensive items. And they'll say, that someone has their phone, the microphone needs to be on mute, please. Thank you. They'll have a recipe and they'll say, I'm going to focus on the proteins, because I know that's my most expensive component of the recipe. And I'm going to allow a certain amount for vegetables and starch and condiments, buns and butter and all that sort of thing. And they put a fixed price on that, say $2.50 or $3. So there's different ways that chefs approach costing recipes. And that's what we're going to talk a little bit about today, more in general terms, and hopefully with a little bit more clarity. Does that make sense? Thumbs up? Yeah, I got a shake of the head. Okay, perfect. Before we get into that, just want to review some key dates. First of all, your major project is not due on Wednesday. So that must be another couple of thumbs up there. Initially, it was going to be due on November 14th or November, whatever Wednesday is. However, teaching online and teaching this course online, we have all learned a few things, including myself. I've learned a lot through this process. So we were not as far ahead as I thought we would be. And it's also, I've also taken out some stuff that I thought perhaps wasn't as relevant as other stuff. So I've changed the due date to your major project to December 14th. Stephen and I are going to work on that this week. And then we will, or I will let you have the major project on Monday next week. So today is the 16th, on the 23rd of November. And that will give you 3 weeks to complete the major project. And major sounds like a serious word. I'm not going to give you work that is going to send you into the depths of despair. So it'll be relevant to the course materials that we're covering, but it's not going to hopefully send you off the deep end. Because please keep in mind, I have 66 of them that I have to mark, and that will probably send me off the deep end. So let's all stay out of the deep end, okay? Does that make sense?
Even I have a question.
Yes.
The major project, are some of the questions going to be there in the exam as well? Like if you practice this earlier?
Well, no, but the concepts that you'll be doing. So when we're going to get into menu engineering, and that's going to play a big role in the major project and in the final exam. Because menu engineering, as Stephen will explain, is where you have a great understanding of what each of your main recipes cost, how much you should sell them for, what that food cost as a percentage is, and most importantly, what does that dish contribute to my profit? So menu engineering is really, really important. So in the second semester, when we look at the final exam in the major project, it is going to be quite strongly centered on the menu engineering process. Now with your exam, your final exam is going to follow the same format as the midterm exam, so there's no surprises. There'll be some true or false questions, multiple choice questions, some short answer questions, and then there'll be some mathematical questions. And the menu engineering workbook that you will see today and that you will have as a group project later on, you are going to see again at the final exam and the major project. Does that answer your question? Good. Okay. So the next two classes after today, we have cost of food sold and then beverage and labor costs. Now, when you look at cost of food sold, that may seem confusing because we've been talking a lot about food cost and beverage costs and labor costs, but cost of food sold or cost of beverage sold is a different process. Because when you look at that, we don't even look at revenue at that point. This is all about inventory, how much you have in inventory, how much are you ordering, how much is being issued. So that's what that class is going to be about. Don't fret too much about that because when we go through it, I'll explain how that works. All right. So that's what that class is going to be about. Then on November 30th, we'll do beverage and labor costs. And that will take us to our final exam review. And during that week prior to the final exam, I will make sure I schedule a couple of extra classes where we can hang out and, swap recipes and, all that good stuff, and maybe do a little bit of practicing to get ready for the final exam. Okay. And then the final exam will be on December 7th. And of course, absolutely everyone is going to do that stupid Proctorio pre-quiz, right? I'll do 2 questions that you have to answer. So everyone's ready, okay? We'll have a great final exam experience. Awesome. Okay.
David.
Yep.
Hi, Devansh here.
Hi, Devansh. How are you?
I'm good. How about you?
I'm outstanding, man.
So, David, some of us are actually traveling to Canada on 6th of December, and we even put in a mail to you asking it around 2 or 3 weeks back if there would be anything around that date. And you told us that no, there's no major thing.
Okay, so when are you're traveling on the 6th?
Yes, at least 6 of us are traveling on December 6th.
Okay. I thought it was one of you on the 5th. Okay. All right. So yeah, there may be, I actually wanted to do this exam, if you can imagine, on December 21st. I wanted to do it even later than this. So I will see if I can change that date. So we've got a little bit of time to play with there. So 6 of you are coming to Canada. That's very exciting.
Yes.
Okay. So thank you for that reminder. I will see what I can do about changing that.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so here it's just a little pictures. Don't worry about that. Okay, so let's talk about as purchased weight. So as purchased weight. So that is the weight of the product that comes in to your restaurant or your hotel, your receiving dock. The whole prime rib with the fat cap on, the bones, all the trim, everything there. The beef tenderloin that hasn't been butchered properly. Can be the cauliflower, can be broccoli, can be lettuce, whatever. So as purchase weight. And then your raw weight. Raw weight is the product that is raw before cooking. And when you cook something, what happens to it?
It loses moisture and reduces its weight.
Yeah, it loses volume. Unless it's a baked product, then it increases volume. But in a when we're talking about raw product that then becomes cooked, it loses its volume. So when we talk about EP, that's the edible portion. So it's no longer raw, it's been cooked, and that is available. That's the amount that is available for portioning, whether it's for carving or cooking. So you've got edible portion and you've got cooked weight. As purchase weight, edible portion weight. Are those making sense? Okay, good. Waste is the, as you can imagine, the amount of usable product that you simply can't do anything with. We talk about waste, we can talk about trim. So if you look at a whole beef tenderloin or a leg of lamb, you are going to trim a bunch of the fat off. There's the silver skin you have to cut away. Some of that you can use, but most of it you can't. The butcher typically will determine what do they consider waste and what do they not consider waste. But for the most part, a lot of that stuff just goes straight into the garbage because it's just fat and there's not much they can do with it. It has no value, sale value. You can't sell it. Imagine beef tenderloin fat and trim casserole. Yum, that sounds delicious. Which then leads us to usable trim. Hello? Okay. Which leads us to usable trim. When we look at usable trim, what do you think would be some examples of a usable trim?
Could be bones.
We bones for sure. Like when you cut off the rib from a prime rib, you have a full rack of ribs with meat on them, and they're actually quite delicious. They're not pretty as a plate presentation. If you're a chef, I mean, it's like chewing on a dinosaur bone. You have this great big thing, but they're very tasty. But they're still usable. You can also make wonderful stocks and soups from them. So they have a use. You're not going to get the same selling price that you will from the main part of the roast. Another example would be the beef tenderloin. You know, a beef tenderloin is a long piece of meat, and at the end is very flat. And also at the other end, you have the head or the head that is, it's kind of difficult to portion. So you can take the head off and the tail off of the beef tenderloin, and you can put that aside. And if you're a cook or a chef, you know that you can use that for a beef stir fry, beef curry. You could use it for beef stroganoff, and you can get a very good price for it. The center part of the tenderloin, that's where you're going to make your big money from. So there is such a thing as usable trim. Let's look at standard yield. All recipes have to have a yield. If you remember the chocolate chip cookie recipe, right? Remember the yield was 30 cookies, I think, 36 cookies. And each cookie costs 22 cents to make. So when I'm teaching you face to face and I give you a chocolate chip cookie, that cookie will have cost me 22 cents and I made 36 of them. So the recipe yield, how much does it yield? 36 cookies. Then you total up all the ingredients costs from the recipe to give you your recipe cost. And by taking the total recipe cost divided by the yield will give you a price per portion. That's how a recipe works. So yield is very important. Any questions?
Yes, David.
Yep,
I
go
want
ahead.
to ask something. Like, we include labor cost in yield
No,
while we take the
No.
cost?
no, absolutely not. No, that labor you deal separately. This is just purely food cost.
Like, you will be making cookies at home and you will be selling us in the college. So you will be taking 2 hours or 3 hours to make them. So will you include the labor cost, that hourly wages, that like minimum wages are $15 or $16? So you will be considering that or not?
Who's asking this question?
Anmol.
Anmol, I'm going to charge you labor
Okay.
cost. Okay.
That's okay
And
with me.
I don't work
Yes.
for minimum wage, just as an FYI. When I was young, I did.
No, no, no.
No, I know what
Like
you're saying.
for us
No,
people.
no, that's you treat labor costs separately. Just food costs separate, beverage costs separate, labor costs separate, overhead costs separate.
Yes.
Yeah, you have to
Okay.
treat it
Thanks.
separately. But you always account for it in your profit and loss statement, in your income statement. It's always accounted for. It's just in a different section.
Thanks.
You're welcome. You can also look at net weight or volume of food after it's been processed. When I think about net volume, think about a large batch of soup. 17 heads or 18 heads of cauliflower that's been trimmed of all the leaves and the core will yield us 100 portions of soup if the portions are 6 ounces. So you have to know, what's the portion size, how much does the recipe make, and what does it yield per portion size. If you look down here, this is very simple ways of calculating it. This is edible portion, so please write this down either now or after. EP is edible portion, AP is as purchased. Another way of looking at it, it's the same thing. Cooked weight, raw weight. So EP divided by AP, CW divided by RW. Edible portion, as purchased. Cooked weight, raw weight. Oh my God, sorry. The size of the portion is really, really important. If you remember when we talk about the recipes and why recipes are important, if your portion of prime rib is 8 ounces or 225 grams, you need to make sure that every portion of prime rib that goes out is as close to those 225 grams as humanly possible, because that is the consistency that you're looking for, both from a guest satisfaction perspective, a guest value perception, your food cost criteria, your contribution margin criteria. The most important thing is your contribution margin, man. That's your profit. That's why we go through all these steps. So chefs, if your executive chef says, I want the prime rib 225 grams, then she knows what she's talking about, man. 225 grams. Don't decide, well, these are nice people, so I'm going to give them 300 grams. Doesn't work that way. That's bad news when you make decisions like that. Let's look at cost per serving. In some situations, you can buy products like steaks. You can buy pre-cut, pre-trimmed, ready-to-cook steaks. And they're $100 for a case, and you got 25 steaks in the case. So that means each steak costs $4. That's easy. Add another $2 for French fries and coleslaw and garlic bread, and now you've got $6 for your steak. So then you decide, okay, how much do I want to sell the steak for? That's easy. If you look at ground beef and you have a kilogram or 1,000 grams of ground beef and it's $5 for a kilogram, your burger is 100 grams, so you'll get 10 portions. Cost is $5 divided by 10 gives you 50 cents per patty for a hamburger. Does that make sense? The assumption that you have to make that this is universal and it's based on history, that when a guest sits down in a restaurant and they look at the menu and they see the steaks, they want a steak. They see 6 ounces of steak, 10 ounces of steak, 14 ounces of steak. They assume that's raw weight. They're not assuming that once that steak gets in front of them, it's going to be 14 ounces of cooked meat. That would be a lot of meat. So they assume that it's raw meat. Another way of looking at it is when you get items like prime rib or turkey that come into your restaurant. And we've talked about prime rib a lot. It comes in with a big fat cap on and the big rack of ribs, and that's not really what you're interested in. You want the boneless prime rib. So you have to take all the trim away and then you cook it. So once all that cooking is done, then you can start to carve the prime rib. And that's where you're going to get your portions. Typically, prime rib dinner, 210 grams, 225 grams, somewhere that's 7 to 8 ounces is what you can expect. So that is the cooked weight that's on the plate. Does that make sense? Thumbs up? Any thumbs up there? Okay, thank you.
David?
Yeah?
Could you please repeat it again?
No. What part would you like me to repeat?
The second part of it.
Okay, so this is about your prime rib that when you buy prime rib or a turkey, you've got the raw weight, okay? So you know that this is going to come in, and we'll use turkey as an example because we're in the holiday season where a lot of turkey is consumed in North America. And a whole turkey comes in and it probably weighs, let's say 12 kilos. So it's a good size beast. Some people cook that turkey whole in their homes. It takes 4 or 5 hours to cook a whole turkey. But in the hotel business, we don't cook them whole. We debone them because it's easier. Then we can take all those bones, which is usable trim, and make our turkey gravy from it. But from that whole turkey, we've got bones. We've probably got 30 to 35% of the original weight is in bones. And then what we're left is maybe 65% of meat. That's all trimmed, ready to go. So we cook the turkey, and then at the end of it, we have 55%. That's what's left over. That becomes the edible portion because we've done everything to this turkey except serve it to the guest. Now we're ready to serve it to the guest. So when we paid 99 cents for that whole turkey, by the time we arrive that we're ready to put the turkey on the plate for the guest, it is not 99 cents. It has a much higher cost. And that's really, really important when you're calculating your recipe costs. Because the cost of your recipe, then the yield that recipe gives you, the number of portions, is going to determine how much that turkey on the plate costs you. You know that on average, $2.50 is what I pay for my starch and my vegetables and the roll and butter that goes with the turkey. So now I come up with a total cost per portion for the turkey. Now I can say, all right, in order for me to make sure I make the profit I want after I pay everything, including labor, this is what I need to charge for this. So it may cost me $6. And if it costs me $6 and I want a 22% food cost, what would I charge for that on a menu? Anyone know? Any idea how to do that? I want 22% food cost. Take the cost, the $6. Do I multiply it or do I divide it by 22?
Divide it.
Okay, so $6 divided by
1.32.
No. Take $6 divided by
27.27.
That's correct. You take $6 divided by 0.22, and that'll give you $27.27. Now, would you put $27.27 on your menu? No. I would, depending on what the prices of my other menu item dishes were, I'd probably bump it up to 28 bucks. It's Thanksgiving. It's the holiday season. Everyone wants turkey. So charge for it. Okay. Suhail, did that help?
Yes, David.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Excellent. You're welcome. Cost per servable pound or any other unit, kilogram, gram, liter. So this is really what we just talked about. So your as purchase price divided by your yield as a decimal. So we $6. So if cost per servable pound. So let's say that turkey was, we said 99 cents a pound, right? And we know that we're going to get a yield of, when it's all said and done, of 55%. What would the cost per turkey be now? Per servable unit. So per kilogram. We paid
$1.81 per.
That's
kilo.
correct. Was that
Per pound.
Raghav? That's correct. So now the price is $1.80. You started out at 99 cents a pound for the turkey, but when you take all the trim, all the fat, all the bones away, and you've got the meat that the turkey leg and breast that has been cooked, it costs you $1.80 a kilo for that meat, not 99 cents. So when you see in the grocery store, it's the same principle. Oh my God, look at the price of those chickens. My daughter and I were shopping. We bought a bunch of chicken legs with the backs on because we're going to make chicken stock. So this is actually a very good price because we're going to make chicken stock. So it doesn't matter that the backbone is attached. We want the backbone. It's going to give flavor to the stock. So the price was good. Okay. So here is another example. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm going too fast. Prime rib, oven roast, ready roast. Okay. So your as purchase price is $21.50. The as purchase weight of that prime rib was 6.25 kilos. The edible portion weight was 4.46 kilos. The as purchase total cost was $134.38. So that prime rib that was $21.50 a kilo weighed 625. So if you take 2150 times 625, what does that give you?
134.375. That's 38.
Yeah, that's what that whole prime rib cost. Okay, now we have to cook it, and when we cook it, the edible portion comes down to 4.46 kilos. So how do we figure out what the edible portion cost is?
We divide the total cost by the edible portion that we get.
I think it might be the other way around.
95.89.
No, 30.13. Yeah, that's what I got.
Yeah. So what you're doing here is you're calculating the yield. So if you go back here, you started out with 6.25 kilograms, and you're left with, after cooking, left with 4.46 kilograms. So what does it cost now at 4.46 kilos? Because it's not going to be $21.50 a kilo. It's going to be $30.13 per kilo is the true cost of that prime rib, because you've taken the cooked weight, 4.46, divided it by the original weight. This 4.46 represents 71% of this original weight. So now here, down here, see the green? $21.50. That's what you originally paid per kilo for the prime rib. You divide that by your yield, which is 71%. That's what you had left over. Gives you $30.13. Raghav, was that you who said that's the figure you got? Mm-hmm. Okay. I'm going to assume it was. Does that make sense, what I've just explained? Because we're going to do some exercises to practice this. Okay, great. Thank you, Sahil. So really what you're doing here is finding out what is my true cost of this product. The 99 cents per kilogram for the turkey, the $6.25 per kilogram for the prime rib, that's a great price. What is the true cost of that product? That's what's important. Okay. Cost per portion. Okay. So now you've figured out the edible portion per kilogram of the prime rib. And now what's the portion size going to be? So if we go back here, we now know that the new price is $30.13 per kilogram. The portion I want to give is $2.25. So how would you figure that out?
By multiplying it by 225.225.
You'd have to then divide. So you've got $30.13 times
Into
225.
0.225. Yes.
Yeah, 0.225. That's
yes.
important.
Yes.
Because if you do $30.13 times 225,
yes,
that's going to be really expensive prime rib. What answer did you come up with?
I got 6.78.
677.
6.78.
Ah, well done. $6.78 for my prime rib. Okay, and $2.50 for my vegetables, potatoes, my bun and butter, salt and pepper, all that good stuff. So now we got, how much is that? 6.78 plus $2.50. So one portion of prime rib cost me $9.28 to put in front of the guest, food cost. I want 24% food cost. What is my menu selling price? The recipe, one portion costs $9.28.
28% food cost?
24%.
$38.66.
$38.66. I would call it $39. $39 for prime rib. That is not a shocking price. That's what you would see for prime rib in a good restaurant in Canada. Any questions? No? Okay. I thought I'm going to move this group assignment down to the bottom here, or we'll just go here. Okay. Can everyone see this screen? Maybe I'll try and make it a little bit bigger. We're going to do a little exercise here. Okay. Oh my God. Sorry. Okay. You're going to see here at the top, calculate the yield percentage and the true cost. Okay. You see here, this is just for 16 ounces equals a pound, 1,000 grams is a kilo, 1,000 milliliters is 1 liter. So you purchase 5.5 kilograms of strip loin at $8.25 a kilo. After processing and cooking, you have 3.9 kilos servable weight. What is your yield percentage as a decimal? What is your cost per servable kilo? What is the cost of serving 150 grams? If your AP as purchase cost per kilogram increased to $9 a kilo, what is the new cost for serving of 150 grams? Okay. Oh. Hey, guess what? Who said, oh? It's practice, man. So let's practice this. So you guys get to work on this, please. And we'll talk about it in a couple of minutes when I think you've had enough time. I'm saying hello to our dog, my grand puppy. He likes to come up for his morning scratch. Why don't you come up and say hello? Come up and say hello. Come on. Here. Here you go. That was Dresden.
Is that a toy poodle?
He is a doodle.
All
Or
right.
golden doodle. Golden doodle. How are you doing with the questions?
Trying to solve it.
Trying to solve it?
Yeah.
How far along are you?
I have done till Ocean Coast.
So what is the cost of serving 100 grams of the item? Or no, sorry.
It's 1.74.
Okay, great. Who is that?
Unmod.
Okay, Anmol. Yeah, you're correct. Okay, let's take a look here. So the first thing you have here, the first question that's before you is what is the yield percentage as a decimal?
70.90.
0.7091, exactly. So you started out with 5.5 kilos and your servable weight is 3.9 kilograms. So you have to take 3.9 divided by 5.5, which gives you essentially 71% yield would be the answer. Okay, so what is the cost per servable kilo?
11.61.
Correct. So you take that $8.25 per kilo and you divide that by your yield, 0.7091. And that gives you $11.63.
Sorry, can you repeat, David?
You take the original price of $8.25 a kilogram and you divide that by the yield after you've done all the trimming and processing and cooking. And that's the 70.7091. So $8.25 divided by 0.7091 gives you $11.63. What is the cost of serving for 150 grams?
$1.74.
$1.74, exactly. How do we figure that out?
You multiply the price of 1 kilo of edible portion by 0.15.
Yep, exactly. The long way is 11.63 times 150. No, that's not. Yeah, that's right. Divided by 1,000 gives you $1.74. Everyone get that? Everyone understand that? So you now know that your your portion of the beef strip loin for 150 grams, edible portion, is $1.74. Okay, the next part. If your as purchased per kilo increased to $9 a kilo, what is the new cost for a serving of 150 grams?
12.69.
I'm sorry?
12.69.
Okay, that's not,
No, it's
no, that's not the
1.
right answer.
I got 1.90.
1.90 is the answer.
The
That's
total
okay.
cost, yes.
No, you're fine. 12.69, you just need to take it one further step. The
Yes,
12.69 is the new price per kilo of edible
Yes.
portion or usable meat or whatever you want to call it.
Yes.
12.69. So
I wrote it on notebook. The next answer was 1.90.
yeah, so you just take times it by 150 and you get $1.90. Okay. All right. So if you purchased 395 kilos at a cost of what's this? Okay. Do you see the next question down there?
Yes.
Okay. Have you started answering that?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's look at what is the cost of serving for 180 grams of the item?
$1.81.
Correct. $1.81. So you took the original weight, which was 3.95 kilograms. You took after processing and cooking, you were left with 2.45, right? So you take 2.45 kilos divided by 3.95 kilos gives you a yield of 0.62 or 62%. So when you started out with almost 4 kilos of meat, you ended up with 62% after cooking and trimming. Okay. So you know that. All right. So your original price is $6.25 a kilogram. Your yield is 0.6203. That gives you $10.08 per kilogram for usable meat. Times 180 divided by 1,000 gives you 1.81. That's your cost per portion. Okay. If you wish to serve this item for 250 people, how much raw material would you need to order? And how would you figure that out?
So you take the amount of usable meat you need by multiplying the number of people with the weight of the edible portion, and then you divide that whole thing by the yield.
And so how much beef do I need to order?
72.58 kilos.
That's correct. That is 100% correct. Does everyone understand how we got that?
No.
Okay, so here's how we figured that out. You have 250 guests. You know that the portion size is going to be 180 grams. So you take 250 times 180 grams, that will give you 45,000 grams. If you take 45,000 grams divided by 0.6203, that will give you 72,545 and 54 grams. You divide that by 1,000 because there's 1,000 grams in a kilogram, and that gives you 72.5 kilograms. Easy, right? If you look at the very top of the sheet, you know you've got those weights up there, a pound, a kilo, a liter. That becomes critical in your calculations. So in this instance, we know there's 250 guests coming. We know that we want 180 gram portions for the main course, the meat. If we take those 250 grams, or 250 guests times 180 grams, that gives us the 45,000 grams. All right. So the original calculation we came up with after cooking and trimming and everything is we had a yield of 62%. So instead of 45,000 grams, I need over 72,500 grams, or 72.5 kilograms of raw meat. Can I get a thumbs up? Not sure.
I think I will do it another way.
Yeah, there's another way to do it. There's a shorter way to do it if you like. As long as you come out with the 72.5, then Bob's your uncle. Okay.
Like if we will be deducting the amount of yield from one, the rest of the point decimal amount we will be getting, we can add up to 1 point like 1.32 and multiply it by 180 gram. And what tooks out from 250 covers into 180 gram. That will also work.
Okay, as long as you come up with 72.5 and you show your work and it makes sense.
Yes.
That's what we're looking for, right? Is that we order the correct amount. Okay.
David, I have a question regarding this.
Yeah.
In the previous slide, you mentioned that sometimes, except the case of prime ribs, if we say that the serving is 180 grams, the guest thinks 180 grams is the raw weight, right? Not the amount of weight that goes on the plate. It is the raw weight of the meat, 180 grams. So why do we have to order 7.2 kilos? We can just order 250 people into 180 grams.
No, you can't do that. You can't, because what you're calculating is how much you know that the 180 grams is based on your recipe costing, right? If you're selling prime rib, that 180 grams probably says on the menu 225 grams. Typically,
no, that was my question.
Yeah, because prime rib is a roast, right? So when if you let's say you go to a really good steakhouse and they have a steak cart where you actually choose your steak. There's some steakhouses that do that, right? So they wheel around this cart and you say, oh, I'm going to have that 10-ounce Wagyu beef tenderloin. And that's going to cost me $180. But that's okay because I love Wagyu beef. So that's what I order. You know that's going to cook down. And there's you're probably going to get about 6 ounces. So that's it's just Lorenzo. It's just over that perception that guests have. That's just something that they know that they're not expecting 14 ounces of beef tenderloin on their plate. That's what they ordered, but it has to be cooked. Prime rib is a little bit different because sorry, my dog is driving me, dressing out. Sorry, battling with my dog while I'm trying to answer this question. Anyhow, so the perception of the guest is that this is what they expect. Now, if you're that lovely chef in the kitchen, and these guests come in all the time, and they're really super nice people, and you give them an extra 3 ounces on the cut, they're going, oh, wow, that's a big piece of meat. I wasn't expecting it to be that big. It's not usually that big. Mm-hmm. Or same, with you maybe you've been going into this restaurant and you love their prawns, their king prawns, and instead of 4 king prawns, you get 6 king prawns. Oh, wow, that's nice. Then you come back the next time and you only get 4. I went and bought a sandwich at one of the local grocery stores here, Safeway. And the last 3 times I've got this sandwich made, it's been wonderful. And it was made by the same person behind the counter, and they have prepackaged portions of ham. And she put 2 of those packages of ham on the sandwich. So it was approximately just maybe 90 grams of ham tops. So it's not a lot of ham. Then I went in last week and it was someone different, and the person behind the counter only put 1 package of ham on. So that, okay, well now do I say something? Or why is this person only putting one package of ham on, and the other person for the last 3 times has put 2 packages? So there is a consistency issue. So the question is, did the person who was putting 2 packages of ham, were they putting the wrong amount on, or was the other person putting the wrong amount on? Somewhere what was missing was proper training. And the training is so critical because your chef has to say 180 grams cooked prime rib, that is the portion size, and this is what it looks like. And the thing when you're carving a big roast of prime rib, you have to make sure you line your knife up properly and so that you get it as close to 180 grams as possible. Did that answer your question? I kind of rambled on a bit there. Are we good? Has Stephen joined us?
David?
Yeah.
Can you just repeat the answers for these so I can practice later on and check my answers?
For which one? Going right to the top, the
This one.
yield is it?
Yeah, all these answers, question answers.
Okay, so what is the yield as a percentage? Yield percentage as a decimal. The answer is 0.7091. The cost per servable kilo is 11.63. Cost of serving 150 grams, $1.74. If the average, if the as purchased cost increased to $9 a kilo, the new cost per serving 150 grams would be $1.90.
Okay.
Okay. There's a couple more in here that you can practice with. Here's the turkey. There's a turkey one. And then what this is the cost the following recipe. So you've got the information about the turkey. You've got your mixed vegetables. You've got information about that. You got your mashed potatoes, the price for that. So it's $1.50 for 10 portions. You've got cranberry sauce, the price per liter, and you got cost of all other accompaniments and garnishes at 95 cents. What's your total portion cost? So you need to figure that one out, okay? Then using the formula below, selling price is your portion cost divided by the food cost percentage desired. So I want you all to do this, not right now, you can do it as practice. You can do this as practice. You can say, I want 22% food cost. I want to see what 22% food cost would look like on my menu. I want to see what 23 would look like, 24% food cost, 25% food cost, 26% food cost. That's one way of practicing this. But this is how you come up with your portion cost for a recipe, and then how you determine what you're going to sell that menu item for based on 28.75% food cost. So this is a great little tool to practice. Then
David,
the last,
can you please tell the previous slides answers for question 6 and 7? You haven't told that. Yes.
this one I
Last
just
two.
did.
Yes, last two.
No, I'm not going to tell you that. You need to practice that.
I have practiced, but I think my answers are wrong. So can you please tell me? The last answer is, I think, wrong. So that I can do it again. And
Okay, so this one here, you mean?
yes.
What is the cost of serving for 100 grams of the item? That one?
No, that's okay. The last one.
Up here, or this one here?
250 people, yes. Last one.
Oh, I see. Okay. So what we did with that one is we took 250 guests. That's how many people are coming. We know that the portion size, edible portion size will be 180 grams. So we took 250 times 180, which gave us 45,000 grams. Okay, so that's the edible or cooked portion that we need. We know the yield is 62%. So we have to take that 45,000 grams divided by 0.6203, and that gives us, the answer is 72,545 grams. Now, you would never order 72,545 grams of anything. The weight measurement would be a kilo, and there's 1,000 grams in a kilo. So you take that 72,545 grams divided by 1,000, gives you 72.55 kilograms of meat that needs to be ordered.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Yes.
Okay, you're welcome. Okay, so then you've got 2 other exercises that you can practice. You've got the classic burger. Okay, you're going to come up with, again, total cost, and then what would you sell this for? if you wanted a 28.5% food cost. You got all the information there, and then you've got beef dip, and you've got a couple of questions here. Okay, so practice those, and then we will review them on Monday. Okay, now I don't think I could have timed that any better, so hip hip hooray for me. Thank you, JPES, for the thumbs up. That's very nice. You're only doing that thumbs up, JPES, because now I know where you work in Nelson. Okay,
Yes,
ladies and gentlemen, would you please welcome to the stage the legendary, the one, the only, Stephen Stafford. That's when y'all just supposed to cheer uproariously. Good morning, Stephen.
Good morning. That's a very awesome. I don't know if I can follow that introduction up with anything useful.
You can. I was singing your praises. I was singing your praises earlier.
David has, on those exercises, explained extremely well. And I wish you guys good fortune in doing those. The last slide, he's thrown a sneaky in there, so you got to be a little bit mindful. If you look at that, the actual information on the lettuce, some of you may be confused with what he's put in there as the yield. Some restaurants, when you're doing a burger, you put a leaf of lettuce on the burger with the tomato and the cheese just because it looks a little bit fancier. And what he's saying here is you buy a head of lettuce and you only find 15 usable leaves that you can use for this particular recipe. And the cost of the head of lettuce is $1. So you got to figure out what the cost of one leaf is. And I'm sure David has talked to you about how restaurants compensate for this idea is if you actually took a head of lettuce and shredded it, means chop it up real fine, your yield would increase phenomenally. So those restaurants that are just taking the leaf out of a head of lettuce find themselves rather limited. So some genius figured out, well, we can increase the yield. All we have to do is take the lettuce head and take the core out and wash it a bit and shred it. And here we got an 80% yield as opposed to a 40% yield of other lettuce. So hopefully I've given you some hints there.
Thank you for that.
David is a sneaky person sometimes.
Oh, yeah. Do you need me to stop sharing, Stephen?
Sure, if you'd like to, no problem.
Okay. And the PowerPoint's on Moodle, so you have access to it?
I do.
Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing, and then Stephen's going to take over the screen, ladies and gentlemen.
Do you guys need a little bit of a break first? I don't know.
No.
They don't need a break? Okay,
they
good.
don't need a break. They can have a break when you're done.
Excellent. we like to make them work hard.
Exactly.
They used to ask me when I was working in restaurants, what are you doing, working hard? And I said, yeah, most of the time, but sometimes I'm hardly working. I'm going to share my screen with you folks. Not that you have a choice in the matter, but I will. So what you're seeing here is the portion that David would like me to go over with you guys. When we're looking at restaurant menus, and I'm sure you've kind of seen a lot of variety wherever you are. You see restaurants that are fast food restaurants. You have restaurants that are more formal in the dining. You have restaurants that are mid-scale. Everybody has a menu. And when you think about walking into a restaurant and actually opening up the menu, this is the owner's, the chef's best guess as to what you would like to have. Because in real terms, there's probably not a restaurant out there that has produced a menu that thinks whatever they're serving is not any good. I mean, why would you put menu items on the menu that you think that people wouldn't like? So in real terms, you're showing them what you think they need and want as consumers. but your opinion is not necessarily the final stage. So we have a way of analysis which is called menu engineering. The idea of menu engineering is we're going to take a menu apart and see what is profitable and what is popular. And we're going to take items that are very successful for us and try to get our servers to promote. We're going to take items that are not necessarily doing their job and maybe finding a substitution. So the reasons why we do this is to perfect our menu and try to make it a more perfect beast. Everybody following me now? To do this, I need you to do me a favor. I need you guys to get a piece of paper, hopefully a pen or a pencil, get a calculator handy, and you're going to need to make some notes. You're going to need to write a few things down that I'm talking about, because sometimes I talk a little bit quickly and you might find that you have a question for me later, or you can stop me and say, hey, go back. This picture is a typical menu, and it's what we call a folded menu. So when you would get this menu, it would be closed. And when you open the menu up, the theory about menu design and when you create a menu is a picture is worth 1,000 words. So they don't really have many pictures about the items themselves. What they do have is some graphics to draw your attention to their style, their idea. When you open a menu, the first place that everybody looks at is the center of this menu, because that's where they've scientifically watched people's eyes. When you open a menu, where do you focus first? You focus first in the center. Then your eye shifts up to the left, then you go to the right, and then you go down to this part, and then you go down to that part. But you cross the middle very often. So when you're thinking about menu items and where to place them on the menu to get your customer's attention, this center portion is ideal. That's what we call menu design strategy. And where you want to, sometimes when we finish this menu engineering analysis, sometimes the solution is for you to relocate items on the menu. What they're talking about is actually taking the item's location and moving it somewhere which is harder for them to see, like especially if you put stuff on the back of one of these pages. So the guest would actually have to close this and look at the back of those. That's what we call menu relocation. So you might find an item that is really good and it's not working as well as you want. You might want to relocate it to the center where it's going to be something that you can hopefully get the guest to pay more attention. The rules. So hopefully I've explained why we need to do menu engineering, which is analyzing our menu for profitability and popularity. The rules of the game are basically that we want to evaluate items that are similar. So most menus in North America and other places I've been to have what we call starters. Starters are appetizers. They have soups, salads, they have main courses, and they have desserts. So when you do menu engineering, you only want to evaluate items that are similar. For example, you would only evaluate main courses against each other. The reason being is that an appetizer selling for $5 compared to a lobster that sells for $30 is unfair. So you want to keep things grouped together. So that's one of the rules. The goals are to be more profitable and to be more popular for your menu items, and therefore your restaurant making more money and staying in business, and ideally you keep your job and your employees, if you're managing them, get to keep their jobs too. So when you start looking at some of the graphs that are associated with menu engineering and some of the terms, they are not terms that I've invented. They're not terms that David has invented. So we take no responsibility for the words, but the words that come from menu engineering are plow horse, dog, star, and puzzle. So these things, again, they're just creations of the person who created this technique. So far, are you with me? See a few of you got hands up. Pesh, thank you. So what you're seeing underneath is the actual interpretation of what a dog is. It says it's low in contribution margin and low in popularity. A plow horse is high in popularity, but it's not a high contribution margin. So these terms will be puzzling for now because we haven't really explained popularity, contribution margin yet. So don't forget, we'll come back to this slide after we show you how menu engineering works. The idea about menu engineering is you want to make everything a star, because a star is something, an item on your menu that everybody likes, so it's popular, and it's an item that has a high contribution margin towards paying your bills. So that's our goal, but it will never be achieved. So, Delvin, you got a question? No? So this again, perhaps the order of the slides are a little bit, this should be after we do the menu engineering, but remember, stars being profitable and popular, we want to really promote them. We want to sell, sell, sell. And if you're greedy, you could increase the prices, but that's dangerous. Plow horses, unprofitable but popular, keep, but increase the contribution margin. So in other words, once we show you the actual analysis, this will make more sense, but these are the general ideas. Puzzles, they keep you confused because you make money on them, but nobody buys them. So this would be an item that relocation towards the center of the menu may be a good solution for you. Dogs, well, dogs are great animals. I have one myself, but on a menu engineering sheet, they're not profitable, not popular, so we want to perhaps replace them or find out why people don't like them. So this is the chart, and this is something you're going to have to do for homework. You're going to have to fill one of these things in. So here's where the pen and paper come in handy. If we decide to evaluate this menu, we realize this menu, just by looking at the terms, is probably a burger joint, mid-scale. The prices are extremely low, so I would put that in a fast food operation. This is your menu items that you're going to evaluate for profitability and popularity. So you take this right from the menu. This column here, you would take from the sales machine. So there's a record of how many items you've sold in the test period. And the test period could be a week, could be a couple days, could be whatever length of time you want, just to get an idea. And I find this a little bit fuzzy to see. So what I've done is I've put another copy of this in this slide here. I cleaned it up so the resolution's a little bit better. So these come from your menu. This column, number sold, will come from some kind of count. Hopefully a point of sales machine that's adding up the number of sales in these items that you have. This column is a menu mix. So we have to find a way, and I know David has shown you how to calculate an item's menu mix or item's popularity. You would want to take the number that burgers sold and divide it by what? How are we going to find out how popular this is? The answer,
Total sales.
Total sales, right. We want to add up this number of total sales. So in order to do this, you would need to add up burger, beef dip, veggie wrap, etc. Once you get the total number of items sold, this menu mix percentage, because you always want to have that as a percentage. The answer comes as a decimal. We need to multiply by 100 to give us a percentage. That would show out of 100 how popular these items are. So that's how we're going to fill this column. We're also going to look at the selling price, and the selling price comes from the menu. So you've got a menu, it's produced, it's printed, even if it's written on a chalkboard. These are the items that are selling price, the selling price for those items. This column comes from your chef, your kitchen, according to standard recipe, according to the most recent supplier costs. You've estimated the cost of these items for production. This is just the food cost. It's not the prime cost. If you wanted to add a little bit more complexity to this, you could put the item cost, including the labor cost to produce that, as part of the item cost. But we're not doing that right now. We're just simply saying, according to the standard recipe, this is how much it costs us to make a hamburger. And we sell it for $5.50 because that's given to us based on the menu. So this item contribution margin is for us to look at how many dollars we make whenever we sell one of these. So how do you think I'm going to do that? I have
550 minus 1.65.
550 minus 165, item contribution margin. So these are the two columns that we need to fill in order to have menu engineering analysis begin. These columns over here, when we add the word weighted to revenue, to costs, and to contribution margin, all that means is we're going to take the number sold times each cost, each selling price, each cost, and each item's contribution margin. So up here, I've shown you how to do that. You can take 400 times 550 will give you the weighted menu revenue for burgers, and the weighted costs, and the weighted contribution margin. So when this was created, it's hopefully something that is easy to interpret once you start looking at what the columns need you to do. So we've got these. Now these columns have a bump, and they start with the word ME, menu engineering. So these will be the two columns we need to fill in with some kind of comments. And the averages that we're going to use to compare the items menu mix and the items popularity average, or what we expect, is in these boxes here. So hopefully I'm not confusing you, but basically I'm trying to alert you that the columns that have the increase here will be compared, or how we get the answer in these columns is using these averages. These are going to be our menu engineering average contribution margin, menu engineering average popularity. So that's where we're going to fill those higher lows analysis from. This item classification comes from when we fill in these two boxes, what we think that means. Last but not least, item food cost. So how do you figure out what hamburger costs as a percentage? Here's the answer right here. So somebody get a calculator out and tell me what hamburger's food cost percent is. It's $1.65 to produce, and $5.50 selling price. And the percentage over here, somebody said 30%, and you're 100% right. So these cost percents are easily filled in by taking item cost, selling price. Now, a word of caution here, because this is a analysis sheet, you are making some assumptions here. The assumption you're making is one of them is in this item cost column. According to standard recipe, it should cost us $1.65 to produce a hamburger. But people are in the kitchen actually making hamburgers. So you're assuming that they are following the standard recipe. there's no guarantee that they're actually following exactly what the recipe is, because you're producing tens, dozens, hundreds of hamburgers. So this $1.65 is your best guess as to what the cost should be theoretically. And you have to have that, but it's not 100% in the bank. That's exactly what the cost is. Well, thank you for the good mornings. I appreciate that. So far, so good. Now we've focused on the majority of this up here. The real analysis part starts with us discovering or creating these averages. So this menu engineering average popularity is going to be something that we can calculate. And the theory is that every single item that you have on your menu is equally popular. Because why would the chef create a menu that has items that they know are not going to be popular? So you're taking the assumption, again, that everything is good. And for us to do that mathematically is we're going to take 100% of the menu, divide it by the number of choices that we're offering to the guest. So this menu has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different main courses they're offering. So theoretically, 100 divided by 7 is what? What do you get when you take 100%
14.28.
and divide it by 7? So
14.28.
14.28. So the average popularity expectation, your standard, is 14.29%. But that's hard and fast. That is allowing no allowance for it's a cold, wet day, so I'm going to order meatloaf because meatloaf is a comfort food and it's going to make me feel better because it's raining and miserable, or it's a different season. So there's some magic number that we use in menu engineering, and it's 0.7. The theory is, and this is not created by David or myself, somebody who's very smart has figured out that if we take the menu expectation of 14.29% in this case, and we multiply it by 0.7, we will artificially lower that average to allow for, again, weather, to allow for variability. And the number 0.7 will never change. It will always be there. It's a standard based on statistical analysis. So what do you get when you take 14.27 and multiply it by 0.7?
$10.2.
I get 10.0. So you take 100, divide it by 7 choices, because that's 7 choices on the menu, and take the result and multiply it by 0.7 to bring it down to the actual average that we're going to use to measure our items against. So try that. 100 divided by 7 times 0.7, I get 10.0. You get that?
10.003.
Cool. So answer to 2 decimals, 10.00 or 10.03. We will take either one. 9.9999, you take that too. So that's our average popularity expectation. That's how we're going to fill that box in. So that's what we're going to measure these items sales mix to discover whether that is higher or lower than that average. And again, this is the 100% divided by choices. So what would the answer be if we had 5 items on the menu? Only 5 choices. We would take 100 divided by,
That's 20.
so we'd 100 divided by 5 times,
20.
It comes
right?
14.
But we would always multiply by 0.7.
0.7.
Is that ever going to change? The 0.7, is that going to change?
No.
It's a standard. It will always be. So whatever you get, 100 divided by 5, if that was 5 items, times 0.7, the answer is, drum roll,
14.
14. There we go.
14.
So that's the way we find out menu popularity. And 0.7 again, why it's there is because somebody told us it should be there. And that's basically how we remember how to do that. This box over here, we need to take the total contribution margin, which would be this column here. Once we've multiplied everything out, we would add up the total contribution margin. And again, a contribution margin is revenue minus costs. So individually, it's one item's sales price minus one item's cost is the item's contribution margin. This weighted contribution margin would be factoring in the fact that we sold 400 of these guys. So to show you that, these next slides show you how this is done little bit by little. To get the menu mix percent, we add up the total sales, we divide burger sales by total sales, we get 16.46%. We take the selling price of a burger minus the cost, 385. So this next couple slides gives you a little bit of an indication of how those things that I just showed you look when we start to fill it in.
I have a question.
Sure.
So can you go on the 25th slide? So can you explain me what we have to fill in these bumpy columns?
Hey, hold that thought. Your question is just a little early. I haven't got there yet, but you're good. You're following along. You're going, he hasn't really said what we're putting in this section here. We've covered this item food cost percent, but the magic is these columns. And I'm going to show that to you in just a sec. So give me 5 more minutes. If I haven't answered, ask me again. Deal?
Sure.
So let's pretend we have finished all the multiplication out for the burger. This is the number of burgers we sold. This is the menu mix that we got from up here. This is the items contribution margin. We've multiplied out the sales times the cost or selling price to give us revenue. We've multiplied sales times the item cost to give us weighted cost, and we've multiplied out the contribution margin, and we've actually done burger. So what this line is this first burger filled in up to this point and including this one, but still not including these 3 boxes because they're a mystery. This bottom is this total row. So when you review this tonight, tomorrow, you'll be able to kind of go back and see that this is just showing you the answers once everything's been filled in, all the weighted revenue, all the weighted costs, and the total weighted contribution margin. So this box here is something we've already talked about. 100% divided by choices times 0.7 gives us the 10%, which is our comparison standard for menu engineering. Now, this is the average. This is burger's actual sales percent. So is 16.46% higher or lower than this average?
Higher.
It is higher. So when you look at the menu engineering category menu mix, this bumpy column, it's got the word menu mix. That means that you're going to take this actual sales percent and compare it to the standard that we've developed and fill in the word high if it's higher. If this answer was not higher than 10%, we would put the word low here. Now we still haven't done this contribution margin category. Oh, feedback. Ouch. In order for us to do the menu engineering average contribution margin, to get this box, because these two boxes are going to be our standards in which we measure the items against. To get this box here, we have to have filled in the items weighted contribution margin and added up the total. So that's why I gave you the answer here, that when this sheet is all filled in, this is going to be the answer of weighted contribution margin. So in other words, the total menu revenue from all our sales was $14,552. The total cost of the menu, according to standard recipe, was $5,482. What's left over is contribution margin is $9,070. Now we can fill this box in. And the formula says I'm going to take the weighted contribution margin total. So this weighted contribution margin total, all the money left over, and divide it by the number of items that were sold on the menu, which is 2,430. So somebody check my math. Is 9,070, 9070 divided by 2430, is it $3.73?
That's
Yay!
right.
Yes.
Yes.
Start the wave. Okay, we won't start the wave. You guys do
Yes.
that there? When you're in a stadium watching a soccer game and you start the wave and everything's cool and it goes around the stadium? Okay, we do that here too. So this is now our standard. We have a standard popularity